Hi, my name is Anna Lardnoy. Welcome to Forward, Milwaukee Women on the Road of Democracy. Today we talk about Vel Phillips, change agent. Is there anything more that can be said about Vel Phillips? In her lifetime, she became a legend and is remembered as one of historic Milwaukee's most prominent citizens. Vel Phillips is included in this collection of women who influenced the shape of democracy in Milwaukee, not because her story is unknown, but rather because her exclusion from this list would be inexplicable. Join me as we explore her life.
Vel Phillips left an indelible mark on Milwaukee. Her professional life contains an impressive list of firsts, which include the first African American woman to graduate from the University of Madison Law School, the first woman and the first African American to be elected to the Milwaukee Common Council, the first African American judge in Wisconsin, and the first female African American Secretary of State in Wisconsin. This woman, whose life is a parade of notable accomplishments, was born February 18, 1923. As a child, Vel attended Garfield School, where she shone as a talented student. Her scholastic success, coupled with her hard work, made her an academic star at North Division High School, and those academic achievements earned her a scholarship to Howard University. Upon completion of her undergraduate degree, Phillips enrolled in the University of Wisconsin Law School. As a child, she was inspired to practice law by family friend James Dorsey, a Milwaukee attorney with his own list of impressive accomplishments. Her dream to become a lawyer propelled her past the many obstacles between her and her law license. And in 1951, she became the first African American woman to graduate from the UW Law School. While attending the school, she struggled with the problems of segregated student housing. And this was a wrong that was later acknowledged in 2011 when the school named a residence hall in honor of this notable graduate. Vel first ran for office in 1953 in an unsuccessful bid for a seat on the Milwaukee Public Schools School Board, but she was undaunted. She continued her quest and became the first African American woman to be elected to the Milwaukee City Council in 1956. While historic, her election to the Common Council was fraught with problems unique to trailblazers. As the first woman to hold the role, she found there was no woman's restroom for her to use. And when she wasn't battling her colleagues for citizens' rights on the floor, she was battling them behind the scenes for the right to use the facilities designated for the council. She eventually won the fight to use the restroom, but it was not without fierce opposition from a few of her white male counterparts. In 1962, she proposed the Fair Housing Law, which would prevent landlords and realtors from denying access to property based solely on the color of a client's skin. The proposal was rejected each time Phillips brought it to council. Still fighting for legal protection 5 years later, she was dismissed without argument by the remaining 17 council members. But by this time, the city would no longer accept their silence and inaction. Milwaukee citizens were eager for change, and they took to the streets to demand equal rights for all of its citizens. That protest launched the start of 200 nights of marching in Milwaukee. The protest turned a spotlight on the segregated Milwaukee, and Phillips and activist Father James Groby rose to national prominence during this time. Her fight for housing equality was not without consequence. As she marched the streets, she and other protesters were pelted with eggs and doused with human waste. At work, she received angry telephone calls and stacks of threatening letters. And as tensions in Milwaukee grew during the summer of 1967, Phillips wasn't even safe in her own home. One evening, she returned from work to discover a gunshot had been fired into her house, and a note left stating, "Go back to Africa." Shaken enough to send her children to stay with out-of-state relations, she remained undeterred from fighting for what she believed were the fundamental human rights of the citizens that she represented. In the end, the people's voices were heard, and an open housing bill, which had greater protections than the one Phillips originally proposed in 1962, was passed in 1968. After what may have been a peak in a political career for most other politicians, Phillips' star continued to rise. In 1971, she became Wisconsin's first African-American judge when Governor Patrick Lucey appointed her to the Milwaukee County Circuit Court. In 1978, she became the first Black candidate to win a statewide office in Wisconsin when she was elected as the Secretary of State. Even after Phillips no longer held public office, she was active in public life and worked for the remainder of her days to create a more equitable Milwaukee. During her lifetime, Phillips made it known that she wanted what was formerly known as 4th Street to be renamed in her honor. The street is significant to the Phillips story in many ways. It runs through the heart of the aldermanic district she represented for years, and is also the location of her former grade school and the original location of St. Mark's AME, which is where she and her husband, W. Dale Phillips, were married on September 12, 1948. Alderwoman Mullaly Coggs is often quoted regarding Phillips' desire to be linked with the street, indicating Phillips said, "When I get my street, I want it to run from Capitol all the way to St. Paul." And this designation was important to her because she was disappointed that the Milwaukee street named for the civil rights champion Martin Luther King only bore his name on the portions of the road that ran through the predominantly Black neighborhoods. She wanted an entire street, as it ran through each neighborhood, to bear her name. And she was posthumously granted that honor in 2018.
Thank you for joining me for a brief look at a legendary life. To be inspired into action by Phillips, we needn't do any more than ask ourselves a question that she often asked during her own lifetime. What did you do today that was good? Thank you for joining me.